Hi, everybody. Um, yeah, I'm just filled with joy. And I was saying that in an earlier take, and then I thought I didn't really like the lighting, and this lighting I like actually more. So it's sort of like a fireside chat, is what I was going for. I've never really seen FDR's fireside chats, but basically, a fireside chat to me is a campfire story, which to me has always been a ghost story. And that's why I posted that key to my Twitter, because that's where I've always done my thinking and writing out loud. It's where I've always done my thinking out loud and my experiments out loud. And, I did just shoot all of this fantastic. I shot like 16 hours of like footage for something that I want to be like 1 hour and 33 minutes basically. Um, and it's just amazing because I feel like I'm attracting the exact right kind of people into my world right now. Like, it's just really uncanny. And then I was remembering that basically, like, I wanted to become, this is gonna sound totally kooky to you all, to many of you, but like, basically, I wanted to become, I'm just chipping away at the same narratives, right? It's like The Godfather. It's lost in translation. It's, risky business. It's, American Psycho, which in a way are all narratives about adulthood, like adulting, which is what my ex Arthur said. And I was like, oh, I never really heard anybody use adulting like that. But it's sort of like living large, right? Like, how do you live large? But I think that's an ethical thing. I think it's a beauty thing, actually. And I think that's why there's such an emphasis on beauty. And I think that I even at the Park Hyatt, it was like so understated. And I did it just because Hyatt was really cool. I just happened to like Hyatt hotels, and Hyatt like slashed all of their benchmarks to get to like their frequent traveler rewards. And it just was really, I just was going back and forth to New York, and Airbnb basically wasn't an option, so I had to go back to sort of staying in hotels. But when Arthur and I were moving, and I keep bringing him in because he was such an influence to me. When Arthur, it's like American Psycho, right? Like, I'm American Psycho because what I wanted to say is that basically, like, I wanted to become a shaman, you know, and to think about what that would mean, like a medicine man. Like, what would that mean from my particular perspective, or from like my particular standpoint in the world? From where I'm situated. Like, what would I how would I take that on? Um right, and part of the journey is not knowing. Like, I don't even know what I was just saying, you know. Um yeah, I remember what I was saying. And of course, McTausig laid the groundwork for that, but not just McTausig. I mean, right? That was a standard kind, right? Because I'm doing autoethnography. So, right, because instead of like, trying to inhabit or trying to inhabit or appropriate other people's lives, the question for me is, how do you inhabit and interpret your own life? That to me is what the public humanities are, and that's why this program is called Historical Whiteness. And I believe that my recollection is that Christina tipped me that play. I don't know. I'm sure I have it documented, but I've documented so much now, that's why I'm lost in the archives. Right? It's like the thing that I can tell you about becoming a credentialed, a certifiable PhD, right? A crazy intellectual, the nutty professor, is that I can comprehend how limitless knowledge actually is, right? The way that I understand the mainstream world at this point, which is why I'm basically a recluse myself, except when I go travel, you know. Otherwise, I lay really low. Like, I'm just doing my own thing, you know, and getting a lot of work done, and I'm really satisfied. And I realize, like, you know, unless I know somebody else is already going to be in my level, then I do not want to engage them. You know what I mean? And I think that's why it's like, and also because I like consistency. But also, it's not, it's like I can entertain myself. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it's like. It's like something else I was thinking about is what all I've really done is like, again, it's like Oprah, right? It's like Oprah, right? Like I'm doing like my own version of Oprah, right? Like, and where I'm always the guest. You know, it's sort of the thing with like Letterman, but like that's what I understand the best comedy to be, is a kind of searching, caustic, uh, you know, questioning of norms, right? I mean, and I think it just has to be, it's just some comics are more ethical than others, but it's why, like, you know, against, you know, conventional wisdom, I embraced a counter critique of the Mia Farrow HBO documentary series, because that's really, I mean, I feel like that's really unprecedented to just be able, I mean, it's right, it's like it's like wealthy people are literally buying airtime to push their agendas, right? That was already fully litigated in the 1990s. The fact that it could still be getting that level of airtime now, I find incredibly irresponsible by HBO, which is why I hate HBO. But HBO is a relic just like CNN is a relic. I hate to break it to people. I mean, Game of Thrones was it. You can't do anything better than Game of Thrones. That was the narrative that was like being said the entire time, and it's true. And then reading the book, and of course the book is even better, but you know, it's even more pleasurable than reading, you know, than watching it, right? And here's the thing, like I also just was thinking about the fact that, you know, the English are the people who invented whiteness, like Christian English people, right? I mean, that those were the right? I mean, that's the thing, like whiteness was forged here in the Americas. And, you know, everybody else in the world who's not white, they come from much, much, much longer lineages, you know, and that's why for me it became so empowering. I'm doing historical reenactments, but the ethical way, right? I'm trying to write. I'm in a cliche way of putting it. I'm trying to right the historical wrongs in my own particular way, but I'm acting them. I'm enacting them. That's the method to my madness. But I'm consolidating all of the video work because I think that I'm doing a considerable amount of acting in these. I'm trying to sell myself in a particular way, right? And that's show business. And they come from a long line of performers. You know, they might not have been famous, but like they entertained me. That's why I have such fond memories of like my grandparents and my parents and everybody in my family. I mean, they were all sort of like daredevils and like interesting figures in their own way, but they also just like had so much good information because they were working class for the most part and were you know, I'm talking about my grandparents level. They were working class, but they were, you know, they worked in you know, sort of um, you know, they worked for in many either you know, really valuable brands, or they worked sort of behind the scenes. Like my grandfather, my mom told me this time when I was home that because I've been recording them, which has been really interesting. Right. I mean, part of this is like, you know, what I wanted to say is like, you know, coming to rediscovering, like, not that I'm embracing Roman Catholicism as a faith practice, because I don't practice it, but like thinking about that cultural and political history, right? That's helped me think enormously about like whiteness, right? So I'm also decentering whiteness. I'm not forgetting about my whiteness, right? It's very clear that I'm white in like a very particular rubric, which is incredibly contemporary, I think. I think we're literally being framed by this now, right? I mean, that's like the beast. I was explaining it to the student in New York yesterday who didn't let me use the footage I shot because he didn't want to be. I mean, imagine this: he did not want to be on camera, and I was like, don't worry, I'm only going to use myself, you know, because I was sure of what I was getting, and if I got anything of him, it was like in a silhouette in the back, and that's all essentially public domain. Like I was just filming myself, and I would have been responsible enough to, you know, basically just put my own stuff up there or like come up with a creative way of maybe silhouetting out somebody. But, you know, the person that I was speaking with was quite, you know, insistent and, but in the most, you know, sort of charming way possible. And I really appreciated it considering that, you know, I technically had a lot more power than he had, and I could have made a stink if I wanted to. But, like, of course, I wasn't going to because he was fascinating. I mean, we had a connection and we chit chatted, and he didn't know most of my references, but he did know Oprah, right? I'm analyzing myself. That's autotherapy. I'm writing about myself. That's storytelling, right? I'm living my life. It just happens to be at a very high level at this point because of my teachers thought multiply, right? That's why I believe I've re-theorized performance studies. And like I could spend the time to think about that specific genealogy, but like I don't. Like I just remembered, oh now I have to read because I was having these like interesting thoughts about like leather. And it's like, oh, then I was like, oh, I have to read Jack Halberson's book on leather. But I was like, I should. That would be the ethical thing to do, right? Even though I don't want to for various reasons. But like, I'll read it because they're too close to Judith Butler, you know? And it's going to be white stream. I mean, it is. And I kind of don't want to do that, but I also don't want to be in a position where I have to critique that. But it's like, just because you write one book on leather doesn't mean that, like, that's the only word on leather. You know what I mean? I don't even know where that would fit in my projects anyway. I'm just saying, like, that's why this practice of taping myself has become really interesting, you know? And it's worth it for me. I mean, sometimes I get, you know, I don't know, I seem to get, um, I mean, basically, I've only gotten really positive response to this new turn in my life. And I'm ecstatic about it. Because remember, you're only seeing one version, right? That's digital culture, right? That's culture now. You're only seeing one, but that's always the case, right? That's what the Matrix is about. Those of us who think about history and know about history at a large enough scale, my father's researched his father's line, the Schwartz line, all the way back to the 1600s. That's important to do. To know your history and to think about it. History repeats. And that's why I continue to make the case that we're in a very dangerous cycle of binaristic thinking where everything is either black or white. And when you move to a space where everything is black and white, I think you move fully into a space of sadomasochism. Right? Which is just a fancy, provocative way of saying, and this is not my insight, I'm glossing it, I'm making it glow up a little bit, right? Like, the rich and wealthy and the elite have always hazed, you know? Yeah, I did just scratch like my balls, so what? You know, it's like I'm growing up, you know, I'm getting bigger. Like that's what's happening. I'm just living my life out loud, you know, and I'm trying to find people who think similarly to me, who feel similarly to me. Because I'm trying to put together a team. You know, for like what I would like to call a harm reduction collaboratory. You know, so it's just like I need more people to work with, you know, and I'm supposed to make the pitch much earlier in these days. Like, hi everybody. Sean MP Kennedy again, Michael Paul Kennedy, but also movement practicing Kennedy or movement practice Kennedy or Minister of Parliament Kennedy. I used to smoke parliaments. Can you imagine? Too real, as my ex Matt Schneider would say. So yeah, I'm just telling stories. And I don't know, I feel like I'm just picking up on the vibe. I've always read culture really well. I always have. And I'm qualified to pronounce on it. You know? Because, like, I was in the media, so I already know a ton about culture. And then I was in academia, so I knew a lot more about culture, right? And then I got a degree in essentially cultural studies, right? I mean, the Birmingham school and, you know, whatever the non-Birmingham school technically was. But that's also why, like, the novel that I'm working in, Paralipomena, right? I realized it came to me before I came up with it before I realized that Adorno had written something called Paralipomena, and of course I loved that when I saw that because I love Horkheimer and Adorno. Multiple roads to cultural studies, let's put it that way. And that's why flatly, you know, Jonathan was always been really influential to me because I think I really do see the world. I mean, I see the world through the lenses he used to see the world, and that's why that, you know, I'd have to go. I've never been able to find the queer. I have to ask him at some point. I've never been able to find my queer theory syllabus or like reading booklet. They used to, back in the day, they used to print out reading packets. I have them. This is, I'm like, I've been like saving, I'm not a hoarder. My ex Scott was, but I'm not. Like, I just keep, and I just collect, I've just collected things because I've always thought of my archive. I've never asked anybody. I never let go of anything unless it's just like crap, clothing that I don't need anymore, that like is I don't want or don't fit. I mean, that I do believe in regular purging in all across the board, and yeah, I mean, right now I'm feeling like a cross between the American Chloe Sevigny and that Australian comic who sort of was like the grown-up the teen that was on HBO, yeah. But yeah, I'm just enacting my life in the way that I want to enact my life without causing anybody else suffering or pain. And in fact, quite to the contrary, lifting people up wherever I can. And it's changed my energy. You should see how people are flocking to me now. Just because my energy is really loving. Because I think if you put love into the world, right, like you start to get it back. But love is like feeling like you look like yourself, right? Right? It's like, can everybody have the resources just to like have the life they want to live? You know what I mean? Like, I know I have the life I want to live. This is my life. For now, it's working for me. I have a very clear idea of some places that I can like throw in. But like, I did a very successful proof of concept this weekend. Could I shoot a film? And I did it. At a very fancy location because it's so understated. And yet not a super luxe. Not a super luxe space. It would be interesting if I could get that, I haven't looked at any of my footage anyway. 2236. I don't know, like, I think I'll just keep pushing it. I think that I'm just gonna keep pushing the envelope. How does that sound, everybody? Should I just keep pushing the envelope? Should I just keep pushing the envelope? What would that look like? Like, this is my practice now. I just document myself. Isn't that bonkers? Does that seem strange to you? If it does, tell me why. Leave it in the comments, right? Because I'm basically doing an entire, oops-a-daisy, right? Because I'm basically doing an entire post-credits sequence. But see, I'm trying to draw people to the end of these tapes to see if I can do it. So what would be the most outrageous thing I could do? Yeah, because I just sealed my fortune. I just can't. Over the last week, over the last Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, 6 nights, I just got incredible content that can work in multiple ways. How do you like those tatas? Woo! I'm gonna see what Tata actually thinks about that. I mean, I grew up with the Garbage Pail Kids. My name's Slick Sean, which people have made fun of me over at times. made fun of me about at times and tried to drag me once at least about it last summer. Like, it's an homage to the Garbage Pail Kids, right? My Garbage Pail Kids is Stoned Sean. I actually had that card at one point and I don't know where it is. It's a shame. That's why it's like, if I had that now, it would be newly relevant because nobody knows what the fuck the Garbage Pail Kids are about. It was like all bitter irony because the world sucked. You know, I was drugged into thinking that, you know, the world was better than it is. It's not. That's what, like, money will do to you. You know? It's true. I want my money, don't get me wrong, but it's like, you know, it's like, you know, it's just like, I'm living my life and it's golden, you know? And my lighting is fantastic. So it's like, don't even try to step to me, do you know? There could be an overlay in my numbers. I have no idea how many people are, I don't know. How am I supposed to trust the numbers that I'm being given by Google? Or Instagram, right? Better known as Facebook. Right? I am hysterical. You know? Because I've suffered a ton under white supremacy too. Because white people are sadistic. I mean, sadomasochistic. Right? There's some very long historical arc at work here. I believe we're on the downside. It's like I'm playing tennis with myself. I just keep going back and forth, chewing over. And if I start playing tennis, some of this will, you know, I'll leave some of this, but I really am happy right now, you know, although I would love to get back into the tennis. But swimming at the Park Hyatt, they have a saltwater pool, but it was so heavily chlorinated that it really ruined whatever. And this is not a critique, I was so heavily chlorinated and I was like, that's disgusting. So I'm never going in that pool again, actually. It's just so bad for you, chlorine. But yeah, I'm a psycho, right? Because I opted out of the American dream. No, I'm a psycho because there is no American dream. It was only for select people, namely white people, and a few exceptions to prove the rule. I'm laying down tracks, yo. I'm a DJ. I'm DJ Alon Boissonalt. Or Boissonalt, as the case may be. You know? And I'm happy. I don't know about you. But I'm happy. I would love to have like a little thing that I could sit on here because I keep hitting the dials for the stove. So I don't love that so much, if you know what I mean. But yeah, side A, side B, side A, side B. I think that's true, but at what scale? I think it takes a really long time for things to rise and fall. at the very, very vast scale of history that we can comprehend as history, those of us who are supposedly sentient, right? The Homo sapiens, right? I'm a Homo sapiens. I'm not a human. There is no such thing as a human, right? Like, we can say people, but like, it would be more accurate to say Homo sapiens instead of, right, human. There is no such thing as the human. I mean, Homo sapiens is also made up, but at least like everything gets a name. Our name is Homo sapiens, right? This is my A side, 33 minutes and a half, right? And then it's my B side. You know, and I'm just gonna do these like little daily, you know, fireside chats as I'm thinking about it. I mean, as often as I can. Because I have a lot of work I'm doing, as you know. And I would love people who, I'm meeting with somebody who might be able to help me with some of this. You know, I'm gonna, I don't know. I'm not gonna do a focus group, but like, I'm just trying to like connect with people. So like, you know, maybe we can start working together like on a couple of things. That would be like really cool for me. I really like to collaborate. I really love to work with other people is what I'm saying. You know, I've been working on my own for like about a year now, and it would be fantastic if like, I have to put the air back on. It would be fantastic if like, yeah, I'm never turning that light on again. It would be fantastic if, you know, we could solve some of the world's problems together. You know, like think about being not a superhuman, but a super person. Try that on for size. I know it might sound odd, but just try it out. You know, see how it feels. If you don't like it, you can stop doing it. But honestly, that's the way, as I say that, that's the way my parents basically taught me because they made me basically do everything. Like, I actually had to play every single fucking sport, and they made me try. Even golf. I took golf lessons at one point, tennis lessons, of course. I played basketball, baseball, soccer, right? In gym, we had to play I mean, is there even gym anymore? Like, do people play volleyball anymore? I have no idea. I swam and you know, did swim meets. I was on, you know, when I was like when I was in like sixth grade, I guess, I was like on the district swim team, and I stopped going because I just found it to be like such hard work, and I just was exhausted and felt nauseous, and like I couldn't, but I didn't, I mean, because I had been just swimming all the time and I won prizes when I was a kid. I mean, you know, at little meets and things like that, but also like, you know, with track and field. I can't believe I did stuff like that, actually. I feel like I was really young. But, you know, it's like, there is something really important about sports, and that's why I think there's something really interesting about horses that people are so interested in. Because horses are athletic, but they're not athletes. Because athletes can only be... You have to think of yourself as an athlete, and horses don't think of themselves as athletes, right? They just do what humans... There I go again. Oops. They did it again. Well, we're anyway past the time on this edition of Hysterical Whiteness. Because what I'm saying might sound crazy to you, but trust me, it works if you work it, okay? Take great care, be safe, and don't do anything I wouldn't